We do little stories on this channel and recollections really of bygone times, and this is a recollection I had this week regarding my father's shop in Warwick in England on the High Street in about 1983 or 4, I guess. Could be a bit earlier, could be a bit later. So I'm recollecting my experiences as a teenager when I was helping my father in his shop all those years ago. So my father had this shop in Warwick. It was 2 shops knocked together, and it was quite a big shop. It was about 5,000 square foot on the ground floor, and which is roughly speaking sort of 4 tennis courts, and it was full to the brim with furniture and pottery, brass, pictures, rugs, you name it, he would have some of it, but no jewellery, no gold, no silver. And one day he bought a French 18th century commode from a big house locally, and this commode came to the shop on the van, and it was in trouble because the commode's 4 feet had rotted to such an extent that the commode was standing on the 4 ormolu brackets only. So if you looked at the feet, you could see through the ormolu brackets into the air, and the wood had rotted away from inside where the wood should be. So my father said to Chris, who worked for him, "Can you repair this commode?" And Chris said, "No problem, I could do it like that." So my father said to Chris, "Go and repair it, and do it in between the times when you're serving in the shop." This person, Chris, was a retail member of staff in my father's shop, and he was much older than my father, 20 years older than my father. He was a known local person who worked on the retail side, and because Chris had a cravat and had white hair and knew a little bit about antiques, he fulfilled expectations of the private buyers in Warwick. He did not fill expectations of the trade buyers, and he did not fill the expectations of the foreign buyers. But for retail customers coming into my father's shop on the weekend or in the middle of the week, they would come into an antique shop, expect to see a man of 60 or 70 or 80 with white hair in a nice jacket, and they would expect to be told about the item. So he did that job very well. But the shop wasn't always busy, and my father said to Chris, "Fix this commode in the gaps." So Chris said, as I say, no problem at all. So this commode went upstairs and was put upside down. The marble lid was put to one side, and this commode was put upside down so Chris could look at the four legs. And he sawed the legs off, and we felt it was somewhat hurried, and all of us were collectively thinking, "Oh my God, does Chris actually know what he's doing?" So Chris said, "No, it's fine, don't worry, I've done it before, relax." So Chris got on with it, as I say, and doing a bit at a time. And it took a long time, front to end, to finish his commode. It was about 8 months. And because if you have an item of furniture at the restorers, the amount of time the item endures drying or curing or being clamped and glued is much greater, the actual amount of time someone's working on it, probably by a factor of 200 or 300. And so this chest of drawers with no feet on its back had to have the legs remade. So Chris had kept the other offcuts and obviously the ormolu brackets and mounts, and he decided to repair the feet on the item rather than repair them separately and then attach them, recreate them separately and attach them. So we glued these square blocks to this bottom of this carcass, pine carcass of this chest of drawers, and the front ones were splayed. And it's rather like a Minecraft thing where the side of the chest came up, and then the feet, where they were splaying out, there were lots of squares all glued together in increments. And it was natural hide glue, and it was iron clamps and all the rest of it, and straps. And this commode legs started to take its shape, and when they'd set, he then sawed them off to the right shape. So he then reduced the amount of timber so they were the right shape. And he said to my father, "Right, come and have a look at the legs." So my father went and saw the legs, and they were fine. My father was really pleased, and Chris had done a fantastic job, really difficult job, because they were splayed coming forwards, they were splayed coming sideways, they were tapering, and so on. And we needed some KINGWOOD, so the veneer was a hand-cut veneer, meaning if you have a log of Kingwood, we needed the veneer cut through the middle with a saw. We needed thick veneer, not like horrible modern veneer, literally like paper, or a modern veneer where the veneer is spun off the side of the log like a pencil sharpener, and we wanted a hand-cut veneer from the middle. So my father asked around all the people in Warwick with antique shops. There were 54 antique dealers in Warwick in those days, 54, that's about 3 now. And no one had Kingwood. It wasn't an English thing, it was a French thing. No one had any Kingwood. My father had spares for everything else. Had bits of oak, bits of ebony, bits of mahogany, walnut. Walnut was all over the place in Warwick because it's a natural tree. It's a fast-growing tree. People think walnut's an expensive wood. It's not an expensive wood at all. It's a fast-growing, huge, great damn tree. But we didn't have any Kingwood. He didn't have any Kingwood, so he had to buy it from London. And in those days, it was a matter of ringing someone up, getting a catalogue or getting a quote, agreeing a price, sending a cheque, letting the cheque clear, which could take a week or longer, getting the post of veneer back. So my father ordered some veneer, and we had some veneer, and it wasn't the right veneer. The stripe wasn't broad enough. It was sort of a Kingwood veneer you might use on a casket. It was quite narrow, and this commode had really nice wide black streaks. So he had to find someone else. I mean, he found someone else, and he ordered the Kingwood, and the Kingwood came in, and Chris stuck the Kingwood onto the legs. And again, it was done in increments, tiny bits at a time. You couldn't do it all together because the veneer was glued under tension, and it wanted to ping off. If you were gluing it into a concave, for example, it would want to pop off. It all had to be done bit by bit. So he said to my father when he'd done it, come and look at the job, we've nearly finished. And my father went up and saw the commode upside down with the carcass legs, with the Kingwood all trimmed off with a razor blade where the edges were, all nice and sanded off. And because the Kingwood was new, it was yellowy brown, tan colour, and the rest of the commode had the old veneer on, which was a muddy colour. So my father said, right, Chris, you've done a really good job. Stain the legs down, stick the metalwork back on. Chris of course had kept the metalwork, so he had used it as a guide to get the shape right, and then put it in the shop and sell the commode. So we all went off, and he fiddled around putting on the mounts and staining it down with his own stains. And he said a week or two later, come and see the commode, it's finished. So we all went upstairs. We were quite worried about it because it was dragging on a bit, and it was an expensive thing. In those days, the commode was worth, this is in the early 80s, it was worth £20,000, and you could buy a house in England for £20,000 in those days, a detached house in an ordinary road. So we were all thinking, this is going to be important. So we went upstairs, looked at its commode, and he made the grand reveal with some plum and pride. And we all went, oh my God, what's he done? He had stained the legs purple. And we said to him, why are the legs purple? He said, they're not purple, they're the same colour as the rest of it. I've been doing it all my life, I've used the same dyes, the same stains. I've put all the mounts over it beautifully using the little original pins. He said, no, it's not the right colour, the legs are purple, pinky purple, bright. He said, no, it's the same colour, it's the same colour. And we were all somewhat upset and astounded, and it was incredulous. It wasn't funny, but it was just so ridiculous. We found that had become, in the later part of his life, colourblind. Though he did the woodwork very well, and he did the veneer very well, and he did the reattachment of the ormolu very well. Since the last time he'd done a staining job, because he was a retired retail person, he'd lost the eyes had become colourblind, or more colourblind. So he couldn't see the colour. Anyway, so my father said to him, right, we'll put it downstairs. Don't worry about it. Because in those days, if the member of staff was local and older than the boss, older than my father, it was not well taken if you told people off in front of other people, especially me, or other family members. And it would be not well taken to criticise staff members for mistakes. People make mistakes, I make lots of mistakes. So this commode went downstairs and we all forgot about it, and this thing went into storage. And the commode's still in the family, and but this is 40 years later. The stain actually all on its own has muddied down and softened, and the colour now is actually perfect. So it didn't need to be restored again, or restored, or refinished. My father just left it and put it away, and he started to use it. And as I say, we still have the commode. It's just a very, very strange story about how things happen. It's a story really about people, and it's a story about mistakes and honest mistakes, and how honest mistakes happen a lot. And as I say, I remembered it this week and thought it was worth recounting. Thank you for looking.